We're about to cover over 4 million years of human history in just 10 minutes, and I bet you'll learn many new things today that might just blow your mind. Let's start by going back. Way back, over millions of years ago. We begin at a time when our ancestors weren't quite human yet. They roamed the earth, figuring out how to survive with nothing but the land and their instincts. These early hominids, like Artie, lived over 4 million years ago. She could walk on 2 feet and climb trees, kind of like an early experiment in how humans would one day move. But here's the twist. Artie wasn't fully human. She was somewhere in between, and scientists believe she's one of the earliest links on our evolutionary chain. Pretty amazing, right? A little later, Lucy appeared, about 3.2 million years ago. She was small, only about 4 feet tall, but crucial. Lucy could walk upright as well, and her discovery showed us that walking on 2 feet came long before we got smarter. In fact, at this point, our brains were still pretty small, only about a third the size of modern human brains. But walking on 2 legs gave our ancestors a huge advantage. It freed up their hands for other things, maybe even tools. Then comes Homo habilis, or handyman, around 2.6 million years ago. Homo habilis figured out something groundbreaking: stone tools. Nothing fancy, but enough to cut meat or break bones. It might not sound like much, but these early stone tools set the stage for all of our human technology. From here on out, humans wouldn't just survive, they'd start to shape their environment. However, life wasn't easy. These early humans were nomads, constantly on the move, hunting animals and gathering whatever they could find. They didn't have houses or farms. These early humans migrated out of Africa, navigating new terrains, hunting with nothing but sharp rocks, and surviving alongside megafauna, giant mammals like mammoths and woolly rhinos. Just stop and think for a second. Could you imagine living like that? No shelter, no real security. But that all changed with the discovery of fire. When it finally happened, it must have seemed like magic. Fire wasn't just warmth, it was safety. It was a way to cook, and it kept dangerous animals away. But here's where things get even more interesting. These early humans weren't the only ones around. For a long time, they shared the planet with other human-like species, like Neanderthals. Think of it as different branches of the human family tree, all living at the same time. They were bigger and stronger, but they didn't last. What happened to them though? That's still a mystery. And then, around 10,000 BCE, there was an agricultural revolution when humans figured out how to grow their own food. Imagine the relief of not having to chase after animals anymore. This was the moment that changed everything. For the first time, people could finally settle down, build homes, and start forming communities. In a blink of evolutionary time, we went from small wandering groups to villages, and soon after, civilizations. One of the earliest civilizations, Mesopotamia, emerged around 3,500 BCE, between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers in what is now modern-day Iraq. Mesopotamia is often called the cradle of civilization because it gave birth to many things we still use today, such as writing, government, and large-scale architecture. The Sumerians who lived there developed the first known writing system, cuneiform, around 3200 BCE. It's fascinating that the first written records weren't about epic stories or poetry, but instead trade transactions and taxes. While Mesopotamia flourished, another great civilization rose in Egypt around 3100 BCE. Ancient Egypt is most famous for its incredible pyramids, built as early as 2600 BCE. These massive stone structures were more than just tombs for their pharaohs. They were symbols of their power and belief in the afterlife. The Egyptians were masters of organization, gathering thousands of workers to build these wonders that still stand today. Oh, and did you know? The stones used to build the pyramids were so precisely cut that, even today, engineers struggle to replicate their precision with modern tools. They also developed hieroglyphics, one of the earliest writing systems, and made huge advancements in areas like medicine and engineering. Meanwhile, across the world in South Asia, the Indus Valley civilization thrived from around 2600 BCE to 1900 BCE in what is now India and Pakistan. The cities of the Indus Valley, like Harappa and Mohenjo-daro, were marvels of urban planning. They had straight streets, sophisticated drainage systems, and even public baths. It's fascinating that even back then, people were thinking about cleanliness and urban design. Yet, much about the Indus Valley remains a mystery. We've found the writing, but no one has been able to fully decipher it. At this point in history, trade routes were also starting to open up between these great civilizations. This exchange of goods like spices, metals, and textiles across continents laid the foundation for global trade. As we entered the classical era from around 800 BCE to 500 CE, things began to move fast. This period saw the rise of some of the greatest empires and thinkers the world has ever known. One of the first to take the stage was ancient Greece, where democracy, philosophy, and art flourished. Picture this. In Athens, people gathered in open spaces to debate everything from politics to ethics. It was the birthplace of democracy, where ordinary citizens could vote and make decisions about their city. And while this might seem normal to us today, back then, it was revolutionary. At the same time, brilliant minds like Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle were shaping the way we think about the world. Their philosophical debates on justice, truth, and politics are still taught today. While Athens was booming with ideas, the city of Rome was building an empire. Founded in 753 BCE, Rome grew to control much of Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East by the 1st century of BCE. The Romans were experts in engineering, creating aqueducts, roads, and iconic structures like the Colosseum. As the classical era ended, the medieval period began, running roughly from the 5th to the 15th century. Europe, after the fall of the Roman Empire in 476 CE, faced a lot of chaos. Small kingdoms fought for control, and the feudal system emerged, where peasants worked the land for nobles in exchange for protection. Castles were built everywhere, and knights became symbols of power and honor. In Europe, things slowly started to improve by 800 CE, when Charlemagne became the emperor of a new Holy Roman Empire, uniting parts of Europe and encouraging learning. But then came the Crusades, starting in 1096, a series of wars between Christians and Muslims over the Holy Land. The Crusades were brutal, but they also brought back new ideas and technologies from the Middle East, including better ships and spices. Meanwhile, over in China, the Tang, 618 to 907 CE, and Song, 960 to 1279 CE dynasties were booming. China invented paper money, gunpowder, and even the compass during this time. They also built amazing cities with bustling markets and universities. The oh-so-famous Silk Road connected China with Europe, spreading ideas, goods, and culture across continents. During this period, the Chinese were far ahead of Europe in terms of technology and trade. Now, as we move over into the modern era, starting around the late 15th century, the world began to transform at an astonishing pace. The Age of Exploration, beginning in the 1400s, opened up new lands and new opportunities. Explorers like Christopher Columbus set sail in 1492, reaching the Americas and sparking a wave of global exploration. This era was marked by the exchange of goods, ideas, and cultures on an unprecedented scale. The 16th century brought the Renaissance, a time of renowned interest in art, science, and learning. Artists like Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo created masterpieces that still inspire us to this day. Meanwhile, scientific thinkers like Galileo and Copernicus challenged long-held beliefs about the universe. Copernicus proposed that the Earth revolved around the Sun, changing our understanding of place in the cosmos. In the 1800s, machines powered by coal and steam changed everything. Factories grew, cities expanded, and life sped up. People moved from farms to factories. This industrial revolution made things cheaper, but living conditions for workers were harsh. At the same time, European nations raced to colonize Africa and Asia, seeking resources and land. This greed and competition is what led us to World War I in 1914. Millions died in brutal battles with new weapons like machine guns and poison gas. But peace didn't last long. World War II broke out shortly after in 1939. It was deadlier, with events like the Holocaust and the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. After the war, the world split up into two: the US and its allies, and the Soviet Union, beginning the Cold War. This led to a nuclear arms race and a space race. The US won a major victory by landing the first man on the moon in 1969. And as the Cold War ended, technology surged, computers shrank, and the internet connected the world. Globalization has made cultures and economies more interconnected. However, challenges like climate change, inequality, and new conflicts have emerged. Now we live in a digital world with endless possibilities, where the future is bright but uncertain as humanity faces new challenges and opportunities. If you don't like this video, you're probably a robot. Just kidding. But seriously, hit that like button and subscribe to join the fun. See you next time.